Hi there, my name is George Donnelly, and this is the Leak a Day show. Each day we'll bring you a new WikiLeak or two and the latest news about Julian Assange, Bradley Manning, and other assorted truth tellers, and generally heroes. So I've taken up this task. I've taken up this task as a result of the Operation Payback's Operation Leak Spin call to action. The idea is to visit wikileaks.ch/cables and read the cables, analyze them, and share them with other people. So that's what I'm going to be doing every day at 12:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you can't make it, I'll be recording the shows. They're short, 15 minutes or less, and I'm just going to talk about a few of the cables. This could be a good way for you while you're eating your lunch or doing other things to keep up to date about the cable releases, because so far only 1,463 have been released of more than 250,000. So this is really a developing story. It's going to be going on for quite a while, and my job is to keep you informed. This is Ustream.tv, and so here you can chat, you can post about it on Twitter and Facebook, and you can help me host the show. There's a co-host button at the bottom of your screen, perhaps over here, and you can click on that and request to co-host with me. You can ask questions, you can correct me because I may not get everything right. All right, well, to the cables then. First, we'll go to a cable of March 17th, 2008. The reference number is 08 London 797. And first, a note on the structure of the cables. Every cable message contains three parts. There's the top box, which shows the unique reference number, who is sent to and from. There's the middle box, which contains the header information about the receivers and the general subject. And then here is the actual cable itself, usually summarized. So this cable is about the banking crisis, and it's saying it's now one of solvency and not liquidity. This is specifically with respect to England, and it's a cable with between the U.S. Embassy in London and Bank of England. The summary is as follows. Since last summer, the nature of the crisis in financial markets has changed. The problem is now not liquidity in the system, but rather a question of systemic solvency. This was said by Bank of England Governor Mervyn King at a lunch meeting with Treasury Deputy Secretary Robert Kimmitt and Ambassador Tuttle. That would be the U.S. ambassador. King said there are two imperatives. First, to find ways for banks to avoid the stigma of selling unwanted paper. Basically, that means bonds, assets that people don't want. They aren't performing. They were bad investments, and now they're probably worth pennies on the dollar. For example, it could be mortgages that people aren't paying, and they don't know how to get rid of them. They're just sitting on their balance sheet, taking up space, making them look bad. So how do they get rid of these assets at distressed prices, in other words, fire sale? Or by going to a central bank for assistance, which means getting the central bank, such as the Federal Reserve in the U.S., to print new money to pay for these distressed assets, probably at an inflated price, and bail out the bank. Essentially, it's a bailout. Second, to ensure there's a coordinated effort to possibly recapitalize the global banking system. That's basically, they're talking about the central banks, which are basically cartels of the private banks, but using government power to print new money. They're talking about these organizations basically printing tons of new money. In the U.S., that's called quantitative easing. Basically, bailouts. For the first imperative, King, that's the Bank of England governor, he suggested develop a pooling and auctioning process to unblock the large volume of financial investments for which there is currently no market. So basically talking about the tricks, the smoke and mirrors they're going to use to get their bailout for their bad investments. For the second imperative, King suggested, that's the Bank of England governor, that the US, UK, Switzerland, and perhaps Japan might form a temporary new group to jointly develop an effort to bring together sources of capital to recapitalize all major banks. So basically, taking the bailouts on an international level. There's a lot of jargon there, but we can kind of get to the bottom of the issue. All right, so that was the first cable, and again, that was 08 London 797. That's its reference ID, and with that, you can find it on the WikiLeaks site. And its classification was confidential. Next up is a cable with classification secret, 08 London 1452. This one is about Iran, and the U.S. is trying to convince, in this cable, the UK to put pressure on Iranian banking interests in London. So here is the summary. Foreign Secretary Miliband, that's the UK Foreign Secretary, is quote-unquote very aware of the centrality of financial measures, both multilateral and bilateral, to the creation of effective pressure on Tehran is the capital of Iran, and has told the FCO, don't know who that is, that HMG, still not sure who that is, will be at the forefront, quote-unquote, of international financial efforts against Iran and will push its EU partners on Iran, quote-unquote, as hard as possible. FCO Iran contacts told London Iran Watcher May 21st, following HMG's recent engagement in Washington and London with senior Department of State officials, that's in the U.S. This FCO statement of the UK's newly reinvigorated posture on financial measures reflects the judgments and action recommendations, blah, 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 blah. Basically, the U.S. wants the UK to join them in putting pressure on Iranian banks. They want to isolate Iran even further, perhaps. This is really dumb. Cutting off international trade is one of the things that contributed to the First World War. Whenever you cut off any kind of trade, whenever you erect walls between different groups of people, you're setting the stage for problems, for war. And that's what this bullshit is. There's another secret cable about pressure on Iran. And there are even more about banks, including Irish and Scottish banks, about members of Congress who visited the UK to talk about bailouts, about the UK government getting tough on bank bonuses. This banking thing is really simple. The government, through its central bank, which is just a cartel of the private banks, the corporate banks, prints too much new money. And for political purposes, we need to get money out of the hands of the government and the corporate banks. Okay, so those are the cables I'm going to look at today. And since we just have a few minutes left, I'm going to take a look at some recent news relevant to this. Keep in mind the co-host feature, which should be down here somewhere. You can click on it and join me on the show, video and or audio, and ask questions or correct me because I could get some things wrong. I'm by no means an expert here, just a regular guy with an opinion. So here's a piece of news. Julian Assange, yesterday, I believe it was, got bail in the UK. He had been arrested on these charges of sex by surprise in Sweden. And he got bail in ridiculous bail conditions, 240,000 British pounds in bail money. Excuse me. Yeah, had to wear an ankle monitor, had to check in with the police every day before 6 p.m., had to be under house arrest. This reminds me of what's her name, Suki in Myanmar. I mean, it's just insane. Uh, but Sweden, which apparently recently got secured an agreement from the U.S. to no longer be considered neutral, but instead now an ally of the U.S., they appealed the decision. Now Assange is back in jail for at least 48 hours. Which brings me to the case, the risk of Assange being extradited to the U.S. Right now, CNN confirms that a secret grand jury is meeting in Virginia to see if they can drum up any kind of charges to 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 get him into a U.S. kangaroo court. This is where the importance of jury nullification could come in. Just as if you've seen in some old movies, juries can vote their conscience, even if the U.S. was to make a case that Assange had broken one of its rules. Jury members can say, well, be that as it may, we don't agree with your law. We're not going to find him guilty. And that's a concept near and dear to my heart. The U.S. Air Force is blocking access to New York Times and The Guardian in the UK so that its people can't read the the leaks, their coverage of the leaks, which I find just ridiculous. Um, you know, aren't these the people who most, if from the government's point of view, aren't these the people who most need to be aware of these things? Supposedly, these leaks present a great threat to the U.S., and don't its own employees need to be aware of them so it can counter this alleged threat? It kind of eviscerates the claims there. Ray McGovern on Fox defended Assange as a real journalist. I don't know if he is a journalist or not, but he certainly doesn't deserve to be persecuted or treated inappropriately in jail. This article at techeye.net says that Assange is not being allowed to read anything in jail or watch TV. That a Time magazine with his face on the cover was destroyed by prison guards. It's simply ridiculous. And then Glenn Greenwald came out with an article today about the inhumane conditions of Bradley Manning's detention. It is simply unspeakable what they're not letting him interact with hardly anyone. He's in solitary confinement 23 hours per day. It is an atrocity. Anyway, this brings us to the end of our broadcast for today. You can find the recorded video at armyourmind.com, and we'll be doing this every day, Monday through Friday, at 12:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully, I'll do a better job tomorrow and perhaps have a glass of water, so you won't have to listen to me swallowing. Sorry. And again, you can find the leaks. Sorry, you can find the links to the things I've been discussing today at armyourmind.com. That's just my personal website, and you can get the recording of this there as well, so you can pass it along to your network. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it, and see you tomorrow at 12:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Until tomorrow.